Täällä olemme Port Townsend tuolla Seattle. Shota solo. I'm here visiting the author of this book. She wrote so many books about the Sami people. Yay, I'm so happy to meet her.
So my name is Barbara Sjoholm, and I am a Norwegian translator and author, and I've written a number of books or translated them about the Sami. And it was really a great coincidence that Elin turned up today in Port Townsend, where I live, because I have been working on a translation of Sami folktales, and this is the Norwegian version of it, and it will be out in April, and it's called Sami Folktales from the Near and Far Worlds. And this is the cover in the English version. So what was really cool is that Elin Kåven's great grandfather, Johan Kåven, he's mentioned in the folktales, and it sort of just struck me yesterday when I knew she was coming that I could ask her a question about one of these folktales that I was translating about her great-grandfather. So that was really wonderful, and she gave me some good information about her family.
Yeah, this is the other book that you wrote. I'm loving this book, like about it's a lot about the drums in there, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot about the history of the drums from 400 years ago, how they were taken from the Sámi by the missionaries usually, and then sold onwards to aristocrats and museums in Europe. And it's also the story of repatriation, how the drums are coming back to Sápmi, to different museums. So that's all in this book, From Lapland to Sápmi, collecting and returning Sami craft and culture.
So cool. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This table is full of the books that you've written.
Yes.
This story, and also this book about
Amelia de Madhat. Yes, it's a biography of a woman who worked with Johan Tori to get his book published, the Muitala Samed Bira.
Yeah, Muitala Samed Bira. Yeah, so I'm really having a good time here. You also wrote about
Yes,
one.
The Palace of the Snow Queen is a travelogue about traveling around in Sápmi, mostly about 20 years ago, and it's been reprinted with a new afterword. This book, The Reindeer of Chinese Gardens, came out this year, and part of it is the story of the Sámi who came through Port Townsend in 1898 on their way to Alaska. They came all the way from Alta to the East Coast and then across the United States by train to Seattle, and then they stayed in Port Townsend for a while before going to Alaska. And it's the story of one woman in particular, Ella Restina Persdotter, and one of the things we're going to do today is to go out into Port Townsend, and I can show a few places that are connected with the Sami here. Anyway, this is the lagoon, and we're coming up to Chinese Gardens, and that plays a role in the novel, The Reindeer of Chinese Gardens.
Right near this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is where the Chinese had their truck farms. They had kind of gardens, and they would grow all the vegetables for the people in the town, and then they would put out wagons and go around the town.
So they would sell from trucks.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's called a truck farm.
Yes.
Okay, that's like truck farm.
This is North Beach, and so we're looking out. This is the Pacific Ocean. Across the way is Protection Island, but also, or maybe it's Whidbey Island. Anyway, this is plays a role in the story too, because Victoria in Canada is across the water, and they used to smuggle Chinese people across. It's about an hour and a half or 2 hours by boat, and then they would just kind of dump them in the water, and the Chinese would swim ashore, and then they would go meet the other Chinese who were doing the gardens and kind of just blend in, because at that time there was the Chinese Exclusion Act. The Chinese were not allowed to come into the United States.
Oh.
And so they had to go to Canada, and then they would be smuggled in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Anyway, this is a very nice beach for walking around. When the tide is out, you can go all the way around.
Yeah, beautiful place.
And we're on the edge of Fort Worden, so I'll take you into Fort Worden in another way.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a deer standing under that tree.
Yeah.
Look at that over there.
There are a lot of deer around here.
There's a deer under there.
Yeah.
Can you see it, Mary?
Mm-hmm. This is the time when they're very active because they're mating. So you see these big male deer, the stags. They look like reindeer.
Yeah.
Huge antlers, sort of blithely pursuing the does across the street. So everyone has to be very careful when they're driving. What a beautiful day you had.
Yeah. So they would just come in here and they'll be just very close to work.
Yes, yeah. They would just blend in because everyone thought all the Chinese looked exactly the same.
Yeah, they
And
do.
they would wear some of the same clothes, you know, and they had sort of hats that they wore. But yeah, you just imagine that is all filled with farms, and they grew flowers as well as vegetables. And in one part of the novel, one of the reindeer has been left behind. It belongs to Ella, and it's called Lexu. It's a white reindeer, and she is still milking it. She doesn't want it to go up to Alaska. So it's out there that they bring the reindeer to be grazing so that she can get some grass as well as the lichen that they have brought.
Oh, okay, so they're grassing over here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. So it's described as sort of an interesting little parade every time they take the reindeer from the house where they're staying over to Chinese Gardens, because Ella Restina is wearing gakti. And
oh, she did wear gakti even though she maybe she didn't have anything else.
She didn't have anything else.
Yeah.
They probably only had one dress, one
yeah.
pair of clothes when they came.
Yeah, exactly.
They couldn't bring too much. They were very brave. Most of them were quite young. In the novel, Ella Restina is only about 24, maybe.
Okay.
But most of them were just young families, so some of them had children. And I think they were just looking for an adventure, but also a way to make a better life.
Yeah.
And they were offered a wage. The women were offered a wage half what the men got, but it was still something because probably the women had never earned a wage before.
Yeah.
And they came from Kaltakaino and Karasjok, most of them. They didn't have very long to make a decision. This guy, William Kjellman, ended up coming there and recruiting, and this was in February. And I think it was only within a month they had to make a decision just to pull up everything and leave. And they drove the reindeer sleds across the Finnmark Plateau from Kaltakaino to Alta, to Bossakop, and got on the boat.
Oh.
And it wasn't a very sturdy boat. It was a boat in its later years, the Manitoban. And they cut all the antlers off the reindeer herds, the reindeer, because they didn't want them hurting each other when they were down in the steerage in the boat. And, February is not really the greatest time to be crossing the Atlantic. So everyone was sick, and it took, 2 or 3 weeks. And It wasn't very nice,
It
let's
wasn't
just say.
pleasant.
It was not a cruise ship.
No. Yeah, I pity that.
Yeah.
So do you know how many of the reindeer survived that trip? Like more or less?
Well, many of them got to Seattle okay, but they didn't have enough lichen. They had collected a huge amount of lichen for them for the trip, but most of it got thrown away in New Jersey when they docked because they thought it was packing material. And so the reindeer got to Seattle, didn't have enough lichen, and they started to die at that point. They were taken to a park so that they could graze on the grass. But basically around 300 or more died of starvation when they first got to the lower part of Alaska. Yeah. So only out of that over 500 reindeer, about 113 or something survived to get all the way to the Yukon.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. This is popular. This is Fort Worden, and this is a fort that was built. It was started in the late 1890s. This was the parade ground, which is now the Reindeer Deer ground.
Yeah.
And then this was expanded in the First World War. There are 3 forts built at the entrance to Puget Sound, and this is one of them. They were to deter the German submarines from coming in attacking Seattle, even though, of course, that never happened.
Okay.
But now it's used mostly as for art festivals, and these are dormitories, and there are music festivals every summer, as well as a writers' festival. So we'll just go down to the water. So that was the Pacific Ocean, and I mean, really, this leads to the Pacific Ocean, but this is Admiralty Strait, and there's the lighthouse and the pier. And then all the big ships going to Seattle come through here. And yeah, they're on their way. So sometimes you see really, really large ships. So in the 1890s, when they were still using sail, they would come through here, and you would have seen a lot of sailing ships. And when the Sami went to Alaska, they would have been going through here, not really knowing what was next for them. The first time they went through, the women and children all stayed in Port Townsend, and then the 50 men and around 400 or so of the reindeer all went on sailing ships right through here.
Okay. So Alaska was kind of where they were going, and then there were so many stops. They stopped here and in Seattle.
Yes, they stopped in Seattle first, and thousands of people came to look at them at Woodland Park because they'd never seen Laplanders before, as they call them. So there was something like 4,000 people from Seattle that came to just look at them. And the Sami themselves were really interested in Seattle, and they were given permission to just take the trolley and go down and look around the downtown. And there are a lot of photographs of them in the University of Washington libraries, and it was in the newspapers, and everyone was quite curious about them and their stories.
Yeah, Sami is so popular in abroad.
Yep, yeah.
Many of them had babies in their compasses.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Small babies.
And some of the people with them were also Norwegians, and so there were still a lot of people in Seattle that spoke Norwegian at that point, lots of immigrants.
Oh, yeah.
So they were able to talk to each other.
Yeah, because they were also Norwegian.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah, I know.
right.
But I also heard that a lot of the women didn't actually go as far as Alaska. They just stayed here.
Yeah, not at first. They stayed here, and the men were supposed to. They were looking for the reindeer lichen, actually, so they went to the lower part of Alaska just to try and even find the reindeer lichen so that the animals wouldn't starve, but they didn't get there in time. So many of the animals did starve. So then they came back to Port Townsend, and they were all in Port Townsend, men and women and children, for a month or so. And then they had to get some more ships, and that's when they set off from the very far part of Alaska, the northwest of Alaska, up in around Norton Sound in Unalakleet and near Nome. And gold was discovered in Nome, and yeah, that was another gold rush up there.
Do you know any Sámis who did the gold, like who earned a lot of money from gold?
There were, no, I don't know of any Sámi that earned a huge amount of money from the gold. Often they would put claims down on the land, and then there were claim jumpers who would steal it. There was a lot of illness, dysentery, so I have a character who's Sámi in the novel who comes down with dysentery or diphtheria, and he then, loses his money and has to find a way to get back to Norway.
Okay.
But there was a man who made a lot of money called Japhet Lindberg. He was one of the first people to find the gold, and he became the mayor of Nome, and he was on the reindeer expedition. He was not Sámi, but he was from Finnmark.
Okay.
Well, there were Kvens. There were some Kvens on the trip who also had reindeer knowledge, and so they came along. And a couple of them kept notebooks and journals, so we have that information. But then Samuel Balto, who was a friend of Nansen's and had been to Greenland with him, he wrote letters back to Norway about his experience. And those are really good documents too. He wrote to Nansen, but he also wrote to a Sámi Christian newspaper about what it was like, the whole trip, and what it was also like to be living in Alaska. So he never got back to Finnmark. Some of the Sámi actually did manage to get back to Finnmark after their contracts were over, but others either stayed in Alaska and herded there. They had their own herds at some point, or they came down to Washington State and just started farming, usually.
Okay, yeah, you started farming.
Yeah, in Poulsbo and other places on the Kitsap Peninsula. So there are still descendants of those families. And I've recently gotten to know a woman named Penny, who is the great niece of Samuel Balto. Her great grandparents were Anders and Marit Balto, and they came with their daughter, who was later called Mary, and there are some famous pictures of them. Anyway, Penny was like a lot of people. She didn't know that she was Sámi for a long time. The family had moved down from Alaska, and her great-grandmother, after Anders Balto died in Nome, Alaska, her mother married a Norwegian, and so Penny always thought that the whole family was Norwegian. That's what she was told. And she would ask her grandmother, she'd say, grandmother, why are you sucking on the bone marrow? And she thought she was kind of dark-skinned, and would say, are you an Eskimo? And the grandmother would say, no, I'm Norwegian, because they still brought that fear of discrimination with them. And they encountered, prejudice among the Norwegian immigrants who were already here, who called them dirty laps and things like that. So they were not completely able to outrun the, terrible prejudice they had experienced already in Norway.
Yeah, I didn't think about that the other Norwegians would actually take their views of the Sami with them. And
They
then
did.
The Sami came. And
Yeah.
so they actually had to act the same as they would in Norway.
Yeah.
Where did the women stay?
They stayed about 4 miles out of town at old Fort Townsend in barracks that are no longer there. And they could walk into town. It was 3 or 4 miles, but they were kind of encouraged to stay there. And the Sami men were also encouraged to stay there, but everyone got bored. There's really nothing to do at the barracks, so they would walk into town. And at one point, they were all sworn in at the same time to become American citizens. So they did that, and sometimes they'd have a drink or eat out, or they were young people wanting to enjoy themselves too.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, do you think this area is reminds you of Norway, or like Scandinavia?
Yes, I think so,
Yeah.
and I think that's why we're often drawn here.
Yeah.
Lots of Nordic fisher people came here, and Alaska, and Seattle had a big Scandinavian population. I mean, it still does, lots of descendants.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think it looks like.
Yeah, it does.
I was just,
Sort of all of the islands and the kind of fjord-like, and the trees.
The trees are not the same trees, but they're so similar.
Yeah.
They remind you of.
So now we're going into this area, because kind of high on the bluff, and lots of the Victorian houses were built up here, away from the wharf and downtown, where all the sailors were and all the prostitutes, and so I can drive you past some of the Victorians. Are really quite pretty.
Yeah, I like the Victorian houses.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have one.
Yes.
If I could
Yeah.
have a lot of different houses,
Uh-huh.
have one Victorian one.
Right. So my main character in the novel, Dagny Bergland, her husband is a sea captain, and they're from Bergen, and they've been sailing around the world for a long time, but they lost their ship, so they decide to come here. And so they buy a house here, and this blue one was one of the models, I thought, for their house, because they can see out and look at the sea.
Oh.
Isn't this pretty?
Yes, so pretty.
Yeah. And many of them had rooms at the top, dormers you could walk out on, and they called them widows' walks, so the wives could go out and see if their husband's ship was coming.
Oh,
Yeah.
Widow's Walk.
Yeah, but this one doesn't. Anyway, this house has a nice view, all the way around. Dagny thinks it's a little bit too big. She thinks the house has 6 bedrooms and there's only 3 of them.
It says 1889 on there, on the top there.
Yeah, that's when the boom years were, the end of the 1890s or 1880s and 90s, and then there was a big crash, and also the train did not come to Port Townsend as they thought. It stopped in Seattle, so about 1,000 people left overnight, and so the town was not exactly a ghost town, but it was kind of abandoned for a long time. And it was really only in the 1970s that people started moving here and kind of fixing up these old houses. And it's still rather small. It's about 10,000 people in the greater area. More people are moving here now.
For me, that's kind of like, I'm
That's
from
true.
Finland, kids.
Yeah, poor Sangar. There's another very pretty house up here too. This was kind of another possible model. They have very special colors.
Yeah. I love the color. So colorful.
Yeah.
That's a nice one too.
Isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
They've done some remodeling on that, but they have a really lovely garden with all of those hollyhocks and apple trees.
And do you know who lives there now? Or is
I
it
don't.
just- no.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually don't know anybody who lives in a Victorian.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
know the right people, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
There are somewhat more modest ones also.
Yeah.
But this is Morgan Hill, and so this was where the wealthier people lived.
Okay.
So now we're coming into what's called Uptown, and this was the town area that was where the nice people lived. And there's some stores up here, and a library, and more deer.
The deer is so funny.
Yes.
Just like
I know.
They've just taken over.
They have, yeah.
Garden.
Yeah.
just hanging around.
That's why everyone has to have a fence who wants to garden.
Okay, it's gonna be a war with the deer soon.
Yeah, there are often letters to the editor about all of this. Anyway, so you see some smaller Victorian houses. But this is quite nice up here. There's a farmer's market on Saturdays
Oh yeah.
and community center. And this store, Aldrich's, has been there for over 100 years.
Oh really? That's
Yeah, yeah.
outrageous.
Yeah,
Oh, it's a clothing.
yeah. And these would have been shops. I mean, there's still all kinds of shops up here. This was an old theater. It's still kind of in use, but
This one.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah, they should they could upgrade.
they should. It costs a lot of money.
It's
Historic
time.
building, yeah.
It's not just
And there's the old Carnegie Library that's
Wow.
about 125 years
We're
old.
The United States over, they're always interesting
Yeah,
buildings.
and that kind of leads down to another lagoon, but we'll take a look at a few more houses and then head to the downtown.
okay. Do you know anything about the religion that they? Do you know if they were Christians or? This is
The Sami,
Yeah, I know.
I'm assuming that some were Lestadian and some were Christian, non-Lestadian. That's one of the things that's never mentioned, you know, were there any kind of ceremonies for them? There are lots of little churches in Port Townsend, so there were Lutherans and Methodists and Baptists and some Catholics and Episcopalians.
I didn't expect you to know, so I'm happy with it.
Yeah,
It could be anything.
but you can see that's Trinity Methodist, that's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And then there's an old Episcopalian church up there. That's sort of Anglican. That's what it was called in the United States. It's probably the oldest church, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And there's the bell tower. In case there was an emergency, they could ring it.
Okay.
Peninsula.
This is
Oh
a
my
historic
goodness.
house. I think it's one of the oldest. It's from 1868.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. That's right around the time they were settling this.
Sweet little churches.
Yes, yeah. And a lot of the early settlers were churches. And this is, it's now a memorial field. They're painting some murals around it. But this was the first site of the Indian settlement called Katai, and it was ordered burned by the United States government to make room for the settlers. So all the Indians had to leave. And so the next thing that came up here was Chinatown. And there were about 400 or 500 Chinese living here. And then it burned down in 1900 and all of the Chinese left.
Okay.
So now it's a baseball field.
Oh,
Yeah. And that's an old hotel, the Bishop. And yeah, all these murals are cool, and some of them are political. I haven't looked at them closely. But I think they're going to tear this fence down, so they offered to let people do murals there. So this was all of the old downtown, and lots of the original buildings, the brick and everything are here. And there is a kind of marina over there, and the Maritime Center. Wooden boats are really big here. They have a big wooden boat festival to which thousands of people come.
oh.
And there are a lot of people who work on boats. This was given to Port Townsend by a local tribe, the Squalum, in a kind of ceremony that I went to.
Oh.
It's a totem pole.
It's a beautiful totem.
Isn't that pretty?
Oh, wow, that was impressive. So big. And
I know, it's just beautiful. About 40 minutes from here, the Jamestown Squalum have a library and full of Native American books, and
Oh.
a big kind of community center and gift shop and art things. They're actually an amazing tribe. And part of the reason is that they refuse to take a reservation. Most of Native Americans were put on reservations in exchange for giving up their land. And the Jamestown Squalum said no thanks. And instead they bought land. And so therefore they could not be pushed around by the government.
yeah, well done.
Yeah. And they have a good relationship with Port Townsend. There's a mutual kind of connection here, which has been very good for both sides.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah. So this is where the Sami who were staying at Fort Townsend would have come, and they would have gone to the city hall and gotten their American citizenship. And had something to eat, and some of the men had something to drink.
Yeah, probably did.
This is the city hall.
Oh, it's here. Okay.
Yeah, and there are lots of advertisements painted on these brick buildings too. There's one for the tobacco.
Yeah. Best for 3 generations.
Yeah. And here's the ice cream shop where Anna Maria had her ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
Very famous.
The famous ice cream.
So there's the Monarch, Mary.
Is that
Upstairs
where
from
we're
there. No.
No, we're staying at the palace.
Yes,
Oh.
but just so you know, that's where it was located.
Okay.
And some buildings have fallen down, and there's sort of a little, just kind of, trees in there.
Yeah.
But others have stayed.
This is like a really cute little suite.
Yeah, there's a really nice bookstore up here. And then there's a used bookstore across the street. And then there's a movie theater, kind of historic movie theater.
Okay.
We have a film festival every September. So here's where you're staying, is the Palace Hotel on the corner, and the parking is in the back. It's
That's
It's another Victorian, isn't it?
yeah, it is. Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
right. And then we have a ferry that goes across to another island there.
Okay.
We don't have any rivers on this little peninsula, And one of the reasons they abandoned this fort was because they didn't have enough drinking water.
Oh,
But
we don't have any rivers or
no,
not even spring water.
No, the water, drinking water, comes from a lake, and it wasn't really. I think there must have been wells or something. I don't really know how they got their water, but the paper mill needs quite a lot of water, so they put a lot of money into bringing the water from the lake and help maintain the pipes and everything.
Okay. This is like a forest, mystic forest.
Yeah.
Nordic forest.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, this is what it all looked like before they logged it. It was just dense with trees
Oh.
and a lot of mushrooms growing and berries growing and animals in the forest. It almost always has a kind of damp feeling too.
Do you know who else lived there in the barracks there? Was there others or was it, yeah, like...
It was just the Sámi, I think.
Yeah.
The barracks, I've heard that the barracks burned down in 1895, but I don't see that could be true because it was documented that the Sámi lived there in 98. I think I kind of know where the barracks were. When I was writing my novel, when I first started writing it, it was quite a long time ago, 10 years, and I came out here several times and walked around to kind of just get a feeling for it.
Yeah.
Only, yeah, I think the barracks were all in here. And
Okay. Just here when
yeah, it says authorized vehicles only, but I think we could just turn around here.
where all the deers are now.
Yeah, I think this is where the barracks were. And it might be that I know that because there was a sign that kind of explained where everything was. Oh, this is so pretty.
Tapelan paskis lekkiväkkär prahka kosta Sámi nisun horro. Ja on mai olmu lekkivissä maannukko Alaska.
They could, the water is just out there and there is some kind of landing place, or there used to be. And I think I walked down there once and you can, that's how they would also get to Port Townsend. They wouldn't just walk or take a buggy or something. They could take a little, a rowboat or a sailboat. When I have come here, I like to think, about what it must have been like, because this is sort of the longest period they were in the States. And this was kind of their introduction in a way. And I think that it was not completely satisfactory, but they at least had a chance to kind of relax. I mean, they'd just been on the road, basically, since they left Bossakop in February, and they got here in March. And so they had had almost no time to kind of collect themselves. And they'd been on the move. And so I think here they were able to kind of look around and think about, where they were. They didn't speak English, so they couldn't really, they didn't have freedom of movement, but at least they had each other. And I think they were, of course, worried about the reindeer and worried about the men who had gone off. And but when the men came back and they were all safe and sound and reunited with their husbands and brothers and fathers, then I think it must have been summer, and they probably, I think, they must have felt a little bit better about their choice to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know what people thought in the old days.
Most of them were reindeer herding Sámis.
They were, and they came together, so some were related, and or else they knew each other, and they came from around the same places, Kautokeino and Karasjok. So it wasn't like they were just on their own. I think they could speak Sámi, and I get the impression that the women really stuck together and helped each other, and they would have taken turns cooking probably, and taking care of the children. So, yeah, I think they were, I mean, the Sámi know how to take care of themselves, and they know how to, you know, do what needs to be done. So I think they were very brave, but I also think they had a lot of resources, just personal resources. I think it grew harder in some ways when they were in Alaska and people were trying to figure out what to do. Should they stay in Alaska? They had to work very hard that first winter building housing for themselves, and they were sick, and, you know, a few people died, and they didn't really like how they were being treated by the government or the missionaries. But some figured out a way to live there and just decided that they would become reindeer herders in Alaska. And others came down to Washington. And I think then they must have felt more isolated because now they had to make livings as farmers. So there were no reindeer. You know, they had been reindeer herders. And they, you know, sold eggs, they sold vegetables. They had to learn how to farm in this climate. And there weren't very many families, but they tried to stay kind of close together, I think, around Poulsbo. Yeah. Anyway, some people did go back to Norway too, but not very many.
Not so many people.
No.
And I know how many reindeer, but I forgot to ask how many people.
I think there were around 115 or 120.
Okay.
Most of them were the Sámi, and then there were a handful that were, you know, maybe like 5, maybe a few more, who were either Kåven or Norwegians, and they were young men. But they came from an environment where they had either helped with herding or were very familiar with reindeer, so that was why they were hired. And one of them was a cook too, and he's the one who kept that journal, Zachariasen. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
The journal that you based the book on.
I used a lot from the journal, yes. You know, it was great day by day and what people said, and it made it very vivid because a lot of the Sámi just did not like either Sheldon Jackson, who organized the whole trip, or William Fjellman, who came and recruited them. They used to call him Willem Goldman because he was so interested in the gold up in Alaska.
Oh, okay.
Not Shellman, but Goldman.
Oh, you
Yeah.
liked gold better than shell.
Yeah. So you get a sense of the Sámi fighting back and just saying, we're cold, we're hungry, this isn't what we're promised. You know, what about these contracts that we've got? They were not passive. They were definitely aware that they had some kind of rights, and I find that really interesting. And it's the same with the newspapers accounts that were, Port Townsend had a newspaper, The Leader. We actually still have it. And you can go back and you can read those old newspaper accounts, and you know, I think it's again, it's just, they're not just names or they're not just numbers. It's not just the Sámi were in Port Townsend. These were individuals named Hetta and Balto and Rusty and Aikio and things like that. And they were, you know, individuals, and they had their own personalities.
Yeah,
And
that's
yeah,
cool to
yeah,
hear.
yeah,
Very nice.
yeah. Well, should we?
Yeah.
So, is that journal readily available online, or do you have to?
Yeah, and in
It's
fact,
in Norwegian.
no, it's in English. Yeah, and it was published by some descendants in Oregon, and in fact, there's a younger descendant who, for a while, was living in Port Townsend, and he got a hold of me. We were always going to meet, but we never did. But it was his, maybe parents or aunt and uncle.
So what's here now is kind of like a park, just.
Yeah,
nice
it's
park.
a state park.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's people were very surprised when they read my book to find out that there had been Sami living here in this park, because people come here to go on walks and things.
Cool.
Very nice. That was a privilege.
Yeah.
Or a gift.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. This. Did you want to look at more at this? I'm gonna put the. I haven't put all the symbols on here. I want to start using this for divination, actually. Like to put on the different symbols, and you can do the divination. You know.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, that's my goal, to learn that. So I could be the Naidi who can do divination.